Today we are ranking the best apps for reading digital comics. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and in the last few years, digital comics have become a huge part of my experience as a reader. For as much as I'm a Wednesday warrior and I absolutely love buying these big collected editions, sometimes you just can't beat the convenience of being able to hold thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of comics in the palm of your hand in one simple reading interface. And so I love digital comics for that reason. And apparently you love them too, because the most popular video on this channel is me breaking down some of these digital comics apps. But a lot has changed in the last few years since I made that video, and it was time for an update. But this time around, we're not just going to list my favorite services. We're actually going to go through what I call a power ranking. I wanted to make this a little bit more scientific. So I've got 5 different categories that we are going to rank these services on, including browsing, the user experience, overall discoverability, and on how big their content library is. We're going to talk about the major players. We're going to rank them in each category, and then we're going to crown an overall winner. Now, full disclosure, I'm doing this for Black Friday weekend because most of these apps are going to have a subscription deal for Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. So this is going to be the best time for you to jump in. And while I have had, I've done business with each of these companies in some capacity. I've done PR work for DC Ultra. I've had affiliate relationships with both Marvel Unlimited and GlobalComix. This is not a sponsored video, but some of the links in the description down below may help out the channel depending on which ones you choose. And to make sure it's not biased, I'll even leave that up to you. So without further ado, let's talk about the major players before we get into the categories that we're going to be ranking them on. And so we'll start out with the big 2. We've got DC and Marvel. DC has their subscription service called DC Universe Infinite. And that service started back in 2018. It used to be just a huge hub for all things DC, including comic books and their streaming content. They used to have a podcast they did every day. You could watch like old episodes of Static Shock and stuff like that. Well, once HBO Max launched a few years ago, they took all that stuff away and refocused the DC app on just comics. And it's gone through a lot of changes since. DC Universe, the Infinite app, has 2 tiers, which for purposes of this power ranking, we're going to treat as 2 separate streaming services. That's how different they are. But the standard tier is going to cost you $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year. You'll get access to about 27,000 comics that are available 6 months after their print release in stores. So that's pretty dope. Next up, we've got their Ultra tier. DC Universe Infinite's Ultra tier adds quite a few more comics, over 5,000 more comic book titles. And this includes selections from DC Vertigo. They've got collected editions that come into the Ultra tier. But of course, the biggest draw to the Ultra tier is that instead of waiting 6 months past the print release, you're getting access to comics just 1 month after they arrive at local comic shops. And so for someone like me who's balancing a huge pull list, sometimes it feels like I'm balancing them on a plate that's also being spun on a straw. But if you're balancing a big list like I am, a lot of the time, by the time the next issue comes out, I still haven't read the previous issue. And so being able to read it in the DC Universe Ultra app actually helps me out, helps me stay up to date a lot better. So to upgrade to the Ultra tier, that's going to cost you $12.99 a month or $119.99 for the year. Next up, we've got Marvel Unlimited. Marvel Unlimited has been around forever, it seems like. I've had a subscription almost as long as I have been reading comics, which is crazy. It gives you access to over 30,000 comics is what they claim on the website. All of these library sizes are based on claims on the respective services website. But Marvel says they have over 30,000 comics, and those are available to you just 3 months after the initial print release. So half the time as DC Universe, but Marvel doesn't have any sort of ultra tier that'll get you the books sooner. But one thing to remember is that if you're buying physical Marvel comics at your local comic shop, those all come with a digital code that you can redeem inside the Marvel Unlimited app. And so you can read the stuff that you just bought with the stuff that's available for streaming. So it makes a really good and complete reading experience for you for just $9.99 a month or $69 a year. And if you're watching this on Black Friday weekend, they are offering 20% off for the annual subscription. So that'll get you somewhere around, I don't know, I'm not doing math right now, but somewhere in the realm of like $50 for the year. So that's cool. And so those are the big two offerings. And now we'll talk about some of the broader streaming services. And the major player in that conversation, of course, is ComiXology. Now, ComiXology has been around for a long time. When digital comics kind of first became a thing, it was through ComiXology because they made deals with all of the publishers to basically sell their comics the same days they're released in the comic shop, but online. Since then, they've been purchased by Amazon, and Amazon has offered what's called the ComiXology Unlimited subscription, which takes a portion of what's available from all these publishers and makes them available as a sort of all-you-can-read subscription for just $5.99 a month instead of buying the issues a la carte. ComiXology Unlimited is great, in my opinion, for starters, for someone who just wants to try out a little bit of everything. And what's great about them is just how vast their library is. Instead of just Marvel or DC, they've got Boom Studios and Dark Horse and Oni Press and Fantagraphics, and a lot of other publishers are available in ComiXology Unlimited. But you might find their selection to be a little bit limiting. And we'll talk about the pros and cons a little bit later on. Marvel or ComiXology Unlimited, their website claims that they have about 25,000 comics, including their ComiXology originals, which are titles that you won't get anywhere else. The next major player when it comes to the digital comics conversation is GlobalComix. Now, again, full disclosure, I've had an affiliate relationship with GlobalComix for about a year, ever since I first heard of them. And GlobalComix really kind of sprung up as the major competitor to ComiXology Unlimited after a few other services kind of came and went the way of the dodo. GlobalComix boasts, or on their website, they've got over 100,000 comics, with more being added every single day. And they've got quite a few publishers that they didn't have the last time I talked about them, including Marvel and DC. Now, much like ComiXology, GlobalComix is a sort of hybrid where they've got their unlimited service, which is called their Gold Pass membership. And that's going to cost you $6.99 a month or $69 for the year. If you're watching this Black Friday weekend, they've got theirs on sale for $49 for the year as well. And even if you're not watching this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, use my link down below and you'll still get a discount. It won't be as good as the Black Friday deal, but it'll still be a really good deal on that annual Gold Pass. But they've got their Gold Pass subscription service, which gets you access to a rotating selection of titles from the big two, as well as a lot of titles from the sort of major indie publishers. I'm talking Image, IDW, Dark Horse has titles available. When I started this evaluation back in July, GlobalComix had both Boom Studios and Oni Press titles available. At the time of this recording, they do not. So it's important to note that you should always be checking in to see what's available at any given time to make sure your subscription is still worth it on all of these services. But the advantage that GlobalComix has is that some of the books that are available on Gold Pass, there's absolutely no delay. So for IDW, for example, as well as Mad Cave Studios, the day a new issue comes out, you can read it with your GlobalComix Gold Pass. That's how I'm always up to date on what's happening with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I love it. So that's $6.99 a month or $69 for the year. And the last service we'll talk about today is Hoopla. Now, again, the most popular video on this channel is my video talking about how to read comics for free with the Hoopla app. And so I won't go into crazy detail here, but Hoopla is an app that is basically sponsored by your public library. If you live in the United States and you have a library card, you most likely have access to Hoopla. And there are other services that that may take the place of Hoopla, such as Libby. But in my area, Hoopla is the major player in town. Now, depending on where you live, there are more or less books available. So that's another big caveat. But assuming your local county or your local library system participates, Hoopla has a ton of comic books, usually in the collected edition or graphic novel format, available the same day as their print releases. Sometimes they even have regular comics the same day as their print releases. Like right now, I'm looking at Transformers issue 26. That came out like last week, if I remember correctly. And of course, the big advantage for Hoopla is it is absolutely free. So with the fact that it's free and the fact that you get so many publishers, there's publishers in Hoopla that are not on any of the others that I named. Fantagraphics is in here. We've got Kodansha Manga. We've got Scholastic's in here. I don't see them anywhere else. So there's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of advantages. We'll talk about the content library when we get down to our ranking, but just know that's a dope app. And if you get access to it for free, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I highly recommend it, especially if you're like one of the people in my audience who's like in high school or college aged, and you're trying to stay up to date on stuff. This is a great way to do it. Again, it's not gonna get you access to single issues mostly, but it will get you access to like collected editions. So for example, the Invincible Universe Battle Beast trade just recently came out. So did Absolute Martian Manhunter Volume 1. And that's right here in the Hoopla app. And you can just borrow it. You check it out and return it just like you would a normal library book. But it's all from the convenience of your iPad, your Android tablet, or even your personal computer. So now that we've laid out who all the major players are, let's talk about these power ranking categories. And like I said, I've got 5 different categories that we're going to be evaluating on. And some of these, like I said, I started this back in July, and some of these have kind of moved up and down the rankings as their development teams have added and removed features and bugs from the apps. So that's really cool. But we're going to be ranking them on their content library. We're going to be ranking them on how easy it is to browse. We're going to rank them on their overall user experience, how easy it is to discover something new, and their value, like what you get in relation to the price that you pay. So we're going to tally up all of those. Because I'm ranking 6 different services, each first place point is worth 6 points. Second place is worth 5 points, and so on. So if you were to win every category, the maximum score you could get would be a 30. Spoiler alert, no one wins a 30. And also, spoiler alert, the ranking is really, really close. You'll be surprised when you see the winner. But we're going to start the evaluation with the thing that's probably the most or the easiest to judge on. And that's going to be the content library. So Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe, respectively, of course, take the biggest hit in this category because they only have Marvel and DC books, respectively. So here, DC Ultra only gets 3 points in this category. Marvel Unlimited gets 2 points. And then, of course, the DC Ultra or DC Universe standard tier only got 1 point in this category because, again, we're basing it on how much is available. The DC Ultra just edged out the Marvel Unlimited because of the 1 month release window. That's really crucial. But let's talk about the winners in that category. And this was kind of a toss-up. So at the time of the recording, like I said, GlobalComix actually had more publishers available. I used to tout them as the streaming service for independent comics. They had Image and Dark Horse and Boom and Oni Press and all of the Kickstarter creators, because the one advantage that GlobalComix has that all these others don't is that they allow users to sign up and add comics themselves. Of course, they're going to check them for copyright status and all of that. But in addition to all of these major publishers and independent publishers, you also get creators from like that you would normally only see like at conventions or on Kickstarter. Like my homies at Bent Box Comics have a big presence on GlobalComix. So do my friends at Fourth Wall Comics. So when you hear me yelling from the rooftops about the campaign for Ace Blade or Lumberjacks, yeah, you could just back the Kickstarter campaign, but if that doesn't work, you can also just go to GlobalComix and read that. So the addition of all of those indie publishers gave GlobalComix the slight edge on content, even though they didn't have the same amount of sort of major and mid-major publishers as Hoopla or even ComiXology Unlimited. ComiXology Unlimited gets the second place vote for this because, like I said, they've got a little bit from everybody. Where ComiXology Unlimited kind of falls apart is they've got enough to get like a sample. Like you'll find a lot of volume 1s, but not a lot of volume 2s. Or if in the case of single issues, you might get like the first 3 issues of a story arc and not the last 2. ComiXology Unlimited really serves as like an appetite primer or appetizer for their a la carte purchases. And so I can't really give them too much for the standalone streaming services. But like I said, it's great because it's only, $5.99 a month. It's great if you are someone who's on a lower budget, if you're like a kid in college, for example, or even a high schooler. That's a whole lot easier than shelling out $10 to $15 for Marvel or DC Unlimited and still being limited to just Marvel and DC. So ComiXology Unlimited got the second place vote there. And that's mostly because they also have access to single issues as well. But Hoopla, honestly, I could probably tie. I could put ComiXology and Hoopla in a tie for second place because what Hoopla has the advantage on is the breadth of the library. So ComiXology might have more books. I don't think they have more books actually, but Hoopla has every publisher that I talked about. They don't have the Kickstarter and independent creator publishers, but they've got Abrams Comic Arts in here. There's Vault Comics in here. There's Fantagraphics, and all that stuff is day and date digital. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna have to change the score for content. I gotta give Hoopla the second place vote, and ComiXology Unlimited is gonna knock down to third, which is gonna give it one less point in the overall rankings. Yeah, sometimes we got to make those decisions because Hoopla has a lot. And like I said, most of what Hoopla has is going to be in the collected edition or graphic novel format, which is great for someone that just wants to try out a book. So yeah, content library. Overall winner is GlobalComix there. Hoopla gets second place. The next category we're going to rank on is one I like to call user experience. Now, the user experience is quite simply like, how much do I like using the app? And it takes a few things into consideration. It takes into account the overall design and flow of the app. And then it also takes into consideration browsability and discoverability, which are 2 categories that we'll get into a little bit deeper later. But let's go ahead and crown an overall winner in the user experience. Now, when I did this back in July, the winner in the user experience category was GlobalComix. And although it's very close, I'm going to give that edge to GlobalComix again this time. So GlobalComix is going to get 6 points. And here's why. GlobalComix, while I feel like it's not the prettiest app on this list, it is very well thought out and very well laid out. And when it comes to user experience and how easy it is to discover comics, that's where it gets taken over the top, because GlobalComix has something that no other service has, and that is a recommendation engine. So because you read this, you'll probably like this. And so there's actually a whole For You tab, which the more you read, the more you get recommended. And as I'm looking at this, apparently I read a lot of Batman. Y'all knew that already, though. So I like that it has a recommendation engine that helps you to find more books that you might enjoy personally. But also another thing that kind of takes GlobalComix over the top is it's not just a comics reader. They are building community tools. And so there is a GlobalComix chat where you can go into different chat rooms and talk to people and like kind of hang out. So that's fun. They also have a feature called GlobalComix Watch, where they've basically curated videos from a bunch of comic book YouTubers, including a familiar face right there. But I promise they didn't score points just because my face is up there. So it's like the more you interact with the app, the more you want to interact with the app. And I think that is pretty much the question at the top, or that's essential to how good is the user experience. Does spending time with this make me want to spend more time with it? So GlobalComix is the winner in that category overall. But the very, very close second goes to DC Universe Infinite Ultra. And that's because the DC Ultra app just looks really, really good. Where it loses points is where we'll get into the more specifics about browsing and discovery. But I mean, the DC Universe app is really well designed. I love how big all of the cards are, the comic book tiles, so that, you know, you can easily see and browse between covers and see what you want, what you may want to explore. Nice big call to action buttons. So from a user design experience or standpoint, DC Universe Infinite has a lot going for it. Like I said, it's the prettiest app in comics, but once you get past the home page, it leaves a little bit to be desired. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Of course, DC Ultra always gets more points than DC regular, just because there's more books available. What I hate is like when I'm scrolling through and it's got this Ultra latest releases tab and you haven't paid your Ultra membership and you can't even click on it. It's trash. But we'll put the DC regular right up under the DC Ultra. And then the next one, under user experience, I might have to give the the fourth place vote to Hoopla. It's kind of a toss-up. But with Hoopla, once you get to the comics tab, there's a lot that you get as far as browsing by genre. You get recommended titles, which I believe this recommendation, kind of like GlobalComix, is based on what you may have read or checked out before. There's trending. And then another thing that you get on this homepage, which I didn't talk about on DC, but you get curation. So you get, you know, here's what we recommend because of this, or this holiday's coming up. Here's some things for Thanksgiving season, right? So actually, I'll give Hoopla the next points over Marvel Unlimited because that design is actually really good. So Hoopla is in fourth place, Marvel's in fifth, and ComiXology is going to come dead last in the user experience category. ComiXology is really, it's gotten better. If you're using ComiXology on the web, I used to tell you it was completely unusable if you didn't have an iPad. And now the reader, they fixed the web reader, so it's a little bit easier to use on your desktop computer. And fun fact, the ComiXology web app or iOS app doesn't exist anymore. It's actually the Kindle app. I just have a custom button on my iPad that opens the Kindle app. But what I hate is just, it's not crazy pretty to look at. There's not a whole lot. Like there's still a section that says get ready for Fantastic Four. That movie came out in theaters long ago and is now on Disney Plus. So it's like they don't put a whole lot of thought into this. And, that's unfortunate. But it's there. It's usable. So the winner for user experience is definitely GlobalComix, with a close second going to DC. The loser in that category is ComiXology. Now let's move on to two categories that I think kind of go hand in hand, but we're going to start with browsability. And so the difference between browsability and discovery. Browsability for me is, if I know what I want, how easy is it for me to find it? And by far, I think the winner in this category, last time I did this, the winner in this category was Hoopla. And I think I would still give that to Hoopla. Now, again, this is if I know what I want, how easy is it to find it? So I'll let's type in Tom King. And Tom King shows up under people, and then you got titles, right? So that's cool. There's a lot of Tom King books to filter from. If I want, let's say I want, Batman's too easy. Let's say I want Black Panther. Let's type in Black Panther on Hoopla. Just search. And that's the thing where it starts to kind of fall apart is this will give you both comics responses and non-comics responses, but I can apply a filter and filter out just the comics. And now here we are with all the Black Panther books. So I like that. I like how easy it is. Like if I know specifically what I'm looking for, I can find it relatively quickly in Hoopla. So I'm going to give Hoopla those points. And let's go. So first place goes to Hoopla for browsability. Now, the next one that I gave the points for browsing is Marvel Unlimited. So Marvel Unlimited is pretty good as far as looking for books. First of all, if you click on the little search bar, you can browse by different things. You can browse by series, issues, characters, creators, or even reading guides. And I love that. It's like, oh, I want to read a Marvel event. Let me go to reading guides, and boom, Imperial, one of the latest events, is right there. Click on that. And I can save it to the library and keep it moving. So I really like how easy it is to browse for things. But what sets Marvel apart from DC is this right here. I'm going to type in the name of a creator. I've typed Tom King enough today. So let's type in Gail Simone. And the search bar is going to give me results with Gail Simone. One, there's a creator result. And then there's also a bunch of stuff that she wrote. If I click on the creator page, I can sort by comics written by Gail Simone by the issue release date. And that is a game changer. And I can click follow. So now when a new Gail Simone book comes up, it'll show up in my library. And that's awesome. Now, again, I'm giving the second place points to Marvel. ComiXology sucks at browsing for things. Like I said, I showed you that user experience already. So second place point is going to go to Marvel. Now, I'm curious to see how well GlobalComix does at browsing nowadays. Let's type in, what's one of the cool books lately? Let's type Invincible. So we've got Invincible showing up as a book, but where GlobalComix lacks is I can't search by an individual creator. On GlobalComix, if you say creator, it's not referring to the creative team. It actually refers to the publisher, whoever uploaded into the service. So that's cool if you're looking for a Fourth Wall Comics release or a Marvel Comics release. But if I wanted to find a comic by Stephanie Williams, for example, there's no easy way to just click on Stephanie Williams and get a bunch of her titles. There's just a bunch of anything with Williams in the name gets included. So the browsability is a little bit limited on GlobalComix, and that's unfortunate. So ComiXology got the third place spot. GlobalComix gets the fourth. And coming in dead last is DC. for browsability, because on DC Infinite, if I go to search for something, I can search for an individual creator, but what's going to come up is not a creator page. I'm just going to get a bunch of comics where that creator is probably named. There's even a playlist, like a showcase of Gail Simone comics here. But if I wanted to come up and just see, okay, well, where's all the Gail Simone books? I got to click on one of these books and then click on Gail Simone's name. And now we've got comic series, showcase, and so on. And it's not even always right, which is unfortunate. So DC Ultra comes in last for that. And there we go. But right along with browsability is discoverability. And so if browsing is how likely am I to find the exact thing that I'm looking for, discoverability is if I don't know what I'm looking for, how likely am I to find something cool or something relevant or meaningful? And when I did this test a while back, the discovery nod went to GlobalComix, and the discovery nod goes to GlobalComix because, again, of that recommendation engine. Now, what I will say is that GlobalComix does a great job of just kind of curating this page. All of the apps have like some sort of curation. I think Hoopla is probably the best at curating, like just showing you right on the front page some cool stuff to read. And as GlobalComix has gotten or added more publishers, this becomes a more difficult job for them to do. But we've got stuff curated by genre. We've got new releases. We've got different publisher partners. And so it's organized on the homepage, but there's a decent shot that, you know, when you're looking for something or you just kind of scrolling around, you may be overwhelmed. You kind of get that paradox of choice a little bit, but we can choose what's popular on Gold. So Invincible is always going to be the most popular book on this platform. It seems like Marvel Zombies and so on. There's, of course, the element of things that are on sale. Dark Horse has a Black Friday sale. Marvel has a Black Friday sale. And then, got popular spooky picks and so on. Now, I think the browsability on the discoverability on GlobalComix, I might actually have to take discoverability away from GlobalComix and give it to Hoopla. And I'll show you why in just a second. So when I go to the homepage of Hoopla, Hoopla's got these big title cards, these big featured cards, and it's just like interesting books. And it's really because you've got like the most popular stuff. You've got a featured segment, and then you've got this genre. So again, that's the real game changer right here. If I click on nonfiction comics, and now we've got a bunch of comics here, and I can read, George Takei's graphic novel. It rhymes with Takai, right? Like that is super helpful. And I think that's just kind of the secret weapon of a librarian. Like these are people who are trained to help people find books. So it makes sense that Hoopla's discoverability actually takes the cake. GlobalComix used to have that crown, but the more they add, the harder it is to sort through. So that curation, I'll give it to GlobalComix. Now, I'll give it to Hoopla, but next up is Marvel. Marvel has a really interesting feature where their user interface isn't the best, to kind of leave something to be desired. They've got this really cool feature where you can just find something for you. Like if I go to the search bar, clear everything out, there's this thing that says not sure what to read. Pick your favorite character to start. So you click on that. And then let's say my favorite is Miles Morales. Tap on Miles Morales and it gives you these really cool segments. I've got starting points. So if I'm new to reading Spider-Man, these recommendations are specifically for me. There's fan favorites. So here are some of the most popular Miles Morales Spider-Man stories. There's latest series. So you can read Ultimate Invasion, which Hickman wrote, or you can read the Miles Morales Spider-Man run by Cody Ziegler. So some of the latest stuff. And then staff picks, which is where you get more of that curation, people telling you what's good about it. I don't know why What If Miles Morales is up here. I would not pick that if I were you, Marvel Unlimited staff, but hey. And they got that for all the major characters. This is a game changer for getting into superhero comics because people are always like, oh, where to start, where to start. There's a whole YouTube ecosystem of where to start videos. So I'm giving that third place award to Marvel Comics. And on Discovery, I will say that DC has gotten better, a lot better. They've got their curation going on the homepage. And honestly, they might take the cake from Marvel, but I already wrote in permanent marker on the sheet. So we're going to leave the score the way it is. But where DC kind of falls apart on browsability or discovering is that what you get up front in this app is almost always the latest and greatest. There's not a lot of mining the back catalog in the DC Infinite app. And what sucks about that is if you don't have the Ultra subscription, the back catalog is the reason to be in the app. So if this isn't going to help you like understand what's there or make the most of it, then that's going to hurt. And on the same token, even on the Ultra tier gets you access to all sorts of graphic novels and stuff, right? There is no way for me to just browse and find graphic novels in the DC Infinite app. That's wild. Like, that's wild. So DC Ultra, gets low points there. But once again, the lowest point on this category is going to go to ComiXology. ComiXology just doesn't help discover anything. It just kind of shows you the greatest hits on the homepage, and they don't update it frequently enough. There's nobody on their staff that's like curating these top picks. So if you're not just watching for the latest and greatest, discovery is not going to be a thing on ComiXology Unlimited. Now, let's go for the final category that we are scoring, and that is value. And value, simply put, is the price you pay versus, whatever value that you extract from it. And of course, the clear winner in the value category is going to be Hoopla, because you pay absolutely nothing and you get access to absolutely everything, depending on your library system. There is one sort of asterisk there. For my Hoopla subscription, I can check out like 20 books a month. I've seen somewhere it's limited to like 5. So it really depends on where you live, what library you are a member of, whether or not Hoopla feels as good or as worth it. But on a starting, like just basic level, so much stuff being available, from Fantagraphics archival projects all the way to the latest Marvel Comics trade and the latest issue of Conan from Titan Comics. Can't really beat free for that. And then in second place for the value conversation, I've got GlobalComix. GlobalComix, that gold pass for $59 a year. Yeah, $59 a year is the $69. $69 a year for the GlobalComix Gold Pass, or $6.99 a month for all the publishers you get access to, for all the independent creators you get access to, and like you get a spattering of Marvel and DC. And some of the stuff is day and date with the digital release. GlobalComix just is, quite frankly, the best value in comics, in my opinion. And then coming in third place, of course, is going to be ComiXology Unlimited. Even though ComiXology Unlimited is cheaper by $1 per month, I think GlobalComix gives you more. So let's give the third place vote to ComiXology. And then from a question of value, that's tough, because DC Infinite, I feel, is almost unusable if you don't have the Ultra subscription. It's not unusable. If you were a big back issue fan, if you wanted to get into it to read like Silver Age comics and stuff like that, then cool. But if you're getting into DC for Silver Age comics, it feels to me like $7.99 is overpriced for what you're going to get, because they don't add to the back catalog nearly as much as they add to like the more recent stuff. And then DC doesn't make it easy for you to find that stuff when you go to search for it. So on the value, I've got DC Universe ranking dead last. The Ultra tier is also second to last because it's so much more expensive. It's $13. It's by far the most expensive service. Now, if you're a DC Comics super fan, then it's going to feel like it's more than worth the $13 a month to subscribe to the Ultra tier. And I feel you. I've got the DC Ultra tier. I feel like I can't live without it. But I'm a big DC fan, so it makes sense for me. But from an overall just dollars and cents standpoint, I feel like it doesn't make as much sense now that I'm laying everything out on paper. And then, of course, the fourth place vote is going to go to Marvel Unlimited. And it gets that vote simply because $10 a month is kind of a lot. I feel like if Marvel Unlimited gave you like collected editions, that might send it over the edge, but they don't. Everything in Marvel Unlimited is a single issue. Now, there are little quirks about each of the apps that I didn't get into because this video, I feel like, is already an hour long, so I don't want to make it too much longer. But it's time for the overall score, and the winner might surprise you. So with, let's talk about winners in overall categories. Surprisingly, Hoopla won in 3 statistical categories: browsability, discoverability, and value. So Hoopla might end up being the overall winner and edge out GlobalComix, who was the winner the last time I did this just a few months ago. So we got 11 points plus 3, that's 14, plus 6, that's 20. So out of a possible 30 being a perfect score, Hoopla got 26 points. Make sure I did my math right one more time. I'm right. Now, GlobalComix won in the other two overall categories. GlobalComix won for breadth and depth of their content library and overall user experience. The design, the app features, and the search and browsability all kind of put together in an overall score. And then it ranked in second place in both discovery and overall value. So GlobalComix scored really well. So we got 12 points, 15 points, plus 5, that's 20, plus another 5, that's 25. Okay. So it looks like Hoopla is going to be the winner overall by 1 point, which is crazy. ComiXology ranked dead last in 2 categories: user experience and discoverability. And that hurt it, but it did get third place votes in content, browsability, and overall value. So there we go, with a grand total of 14 points. That's ComiXology Unlimited. Marvel Unlimited didn't score dead last in any category, but also didn't win in any category. I think it is an okay app. If they gave the app a facelift, and if Marvel Unlimited had an interface that looked a little bit closer to like the fun and whimsy of the DC Universe Infinite app, I think that it would take the cake. It's a better value than DC already, but something about it just doesn't make me want to spend a whole lot of time with it. So there you go. But the overall score for Marvel was 7 plus 3 is 10 plus 6 is 16. So Marvel scored higher than ComiXology. And now let's go to DC. Again, DC Universe Ultra didn't win any overall categories, and it also didn't come in last for any category. The best thing it's got going for it is that design, the user interface. But the browsing, the lack of a creator search, the lack of a filter that's going to filter it by like the different imprints, or the filter that's going to filter by like collected edition. Or I would love to be able to just click a button that just says available on Ultra. Like, just give me an Ultra section of the app. That would be how I would improve it. Maybe improve the scores later, overall later on. But it got a 15 points for DC Universe Infinite Ultra tier. And like I said, I treated the regular standard tier as a separate app. And of course, that's going to get at least 1 point lower in each category than Ultra. And so all things considered, We've got 4, 6, 9 points. 9 points for the standard tier of DC Universe. I don't think it's a great value at $8 a month for 6-month-old comics, some of those 6-month-old comics are available for free on Hoopla. Some of them, some of the Watchmen and or Vertigo titles are available in GlobalComix and some of the other streaming apps. There's just nothing I feel like DC Universe Standard does exceptionally well. So its overall score of 9 seems harsh, but it is what it is. So what's the verdict? Final verdict? Well, Hoopla, if you got a library subscription, it's probably the best way to ingest a bunch of digital comics. And if you don't, then the next best thing is going to be GlobalComix. If you're a Marvel or a DC head, you were going to be reading Marvel and DC already. So you didn't need my recommendation for those. If you want to just kind of follow along with the answer key or the rubric, as it were, then you can check that out on my Patreon page. I will post it on there, and maybe follow my social media. I'll probably post it on Twitter, but not Instagram, because this isn't going to be the prettiest picture. But there's the scorecard, and that's going to do it for this really long Digital Comics Power Ranking. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you filled up on turkey yesterday, and then now you're out there getting all the deals. Don't forget, check the link down below in the description for all of these different services, because they're all offering some form of discount. DC Ultras is the worst discount, by the way. But I'll see you in another one soon. Till then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.